Yeah, Luddites and fans of Luddites. Yep, that's us. All right. So thanks for coming, everybody. My name is David Hoskins. I'm art director over at Exalted Funeral, and we're here to talk Old School Essentials Month, demonic or more, and all things evil and artistic. So I've got a handful of people here that we're going to hand off and do some intros. First, I've got Jacob Fleming. Jacob, you're muted. So
sorry, I'll unmute. Hi, Jacob. I'm the creator and artist of the Ooze for OSE Month.
Right on. Then we've got Jamie Douglas.
Hey, how's it going? I'm working on Out of the Iron Labyrinth with M. Allen Hall.
Right on.
I'm the illustrator for it.
There we go. Eric Roper.
Hey, I'm working on the Black Spire Pact with Skinner, who's not here today. He sends his regards. And we're both doing artwork for it. Kind of, he's doing half, I'm doing half, and there's kind of like a battle between the two of us within the artwork almost.
Cool. Then we've got Aaron Kreader.
Hey, everyone. Yeah, I'm working on the OSE Demonic Grimoire, some illustration spots with Gavin on that one. Yeah, those have been really awesome to create. Love it.
Cool. Then we've got Frankie Breakbone. We got Breakbone in the house.
Yeah, funny mistranslation of my last name, actually. But yeah, hi. I'm currently, let's see, I've done some stuff for OSE, of course, the Grimoire, and I don't have anything going right now except my Patreon and some work with Stephen Marsh on his companion edition. So exciting stuff.
All right. And then we've got Charles Ferguson Avery.
Howdy. Yeah, my name's Charles Ferguson Avery. I'm currently working on Mildew and Silver as part of OSE Month. I have actually some commission work to do today, and then I'm currently finishing up my third book of the Into series, which is a big system neutral setting. This one is all about haunted coastlines.
Awesome. Yeah, and those all those Into series are great. Highly recommend everyone check them out. We'll have links in the video description leading to everyone's projects, and we'll also link like websites and portfolios and stuff. So folks can reach out and get with y'all. I'm going to pull it back to Jacob because he's the guy who's in the upper left of my screen at the moment. And let's talk a little bit about your history with role-playing games, why you...
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So I first started with 4th edition. That was my first edition. I didn't get to play the other ones. So my first introduction was like really confusing. I loved it. But I think we played all of one session and then we're kind of just overwhelmed by the complexity of it. So then years later, I got into 5th edition and then played with my friends. And from then, I wasn't the default DM. I loved playing, and I still do love playing, but I would like make my own adventures, and I practiced kind of composing and editing and doing all that stuff kind of in the background until the third, I think it was the third Zine Quest. That was the year that lockdown was happening. That was when I got into self-publishing, when I did Silver Axe. That was my first project.
Yeah, Silver Axe was really cool. And through your press, you've probably made some of the more like, I mean, at least through EF, I know we've sold plenty of copies of Manticore.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And they're all very well received. Can you talk to us a little bit more about like your process? Because you do pen and ink work. You also do paintings, like the covers are paintings.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about your work and your process and like maybe the tools you use? And
yeah, it's kind of an ongoing process. The 3 covers for the OSE projects, those are all digital paintings. I kind of dabble in a lot of other stuff. I had tried to get into traditional painting with oil and acrylic. I've done a lot of acrylic commissions and stuff, and watercolor to less success. But yeah, I like to jump in and try different things and kind of see what works. Digital is a nice way to explore and revise. But that's the problem, is I can't really stay on digital because I'll revise and revise and yeah, stay on something. So traditional is really the way for me to like get something off my desk as fast as possible.
Yeah, it's a good point. I generally ink digitally, and I know it can you can zoom in like it's way too far, and make sure every dumb little line that no one will ever see or gets reproduced is completely perfect, and it's a big pain in the butt. Yeah, can you run us through a little bit of your current project for OSC month? And are you doing that all yourself, or are you teamed up?
Yeah, no, it's just like the other ones. It's all myself. This was kind of an excuse to mess with the format. It's like a weird 8-page zine where I can like unfold it, and I have a physical mock-up, but I don't want to show because it has a lot of like stuff I'm working on with notes. But yeah, so I'm working on like physical prototypes. So I take all my notes like on the zine. Actually, I'll just pull it out.
Yeah, just show it.
Yeah. All right. So I have like physical mock-ups of like all the zines and stuff, and so I have. Yeah, I can't show all that, but I take all my notes on these layouts on how everything's going to be laid out, and then I have corresponding. It's not Illustrator. I'm using Inkscape for my vector work and for layouts. So each individual like face and panel is its own vector file, and then when I go to print, I'm exporting it into like a larger PDF. And I don't know. This is getting pretty technical, but yeah, it's a lot of staying on paper and pencil for as long as I possibly can, and then I'll start to bring things into like the digital realm where like that's where everything's going to be eventually.
Right. Can you tell us a little more about that program you're using? For
yeah,
people that are sort of locked into that Adobe like ecosystem.
Yeah, oh yeah. So this year I've completely gone open source. Like I don't use Windows, I use Linux. I use GIMP for raster stuff, which is actually really good. I really only need it for like levels and desaturation and the dodge and burn feature, which is actually just as good, if not better than Adobe's. I really recommend people like switch to GIMP. You don't have to pay for that stuff. It's like really nice. And also for publishing, I don't have it on the desktop, but I have another recommendation, which I'll link later for like a free open source publishing software that I recommend.
Yeah, dig that up for sure. Jamie, you had a question for Jacob.
Yeah, so your stuff is usually really painterly, right? Are you doing all vector illustration for the final product for?
No, that's really for like the maps. I have a picture of Manticore. So like all of my maps, they're all done in, I think those were Affinity design InDesign. Or
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, Affinity Publisher.
Yeah, Publisher. Yeah, I did all that on Publisher, and same with the map. Those are all vectors done with like the what is it? The oh gosh, there's a tool. I can't remember. It's a vector tool, but it's all just line work and points.
And normally your interiors are pen and ink, right?
Oh yeah, all pen and ink brush, and then I scan that, and then I crank the hell out of the contrast with all my work. So it's like it almost looks like Xerox after I'm done with it. It's really I really push the contrast on it.
So it gets a little crunchy, and that helps with gives it a little more of a rough edge a bit.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, giving it that rough edge.
Cool. Well, with that, I think I'm going to hop over to Jamie.
Sure.
Hello.
How's it going, Jamie?
Going good.
Awesome. Yeah, kind of the same question. Like, let's talk about you moving over into tabletop role-playing game work. What's made you want to make things for independent tabletop role-playing games? Any other history, things you're into, and then let's move over into your project.
Yeah, I think I grew up playing D&D a little bit. I think I got a starter set of some edition in like 5th grade, and I never got to play a lot. It was like a lot of collecting and reading rule books and like mismatched. I had weird White Wolf rule books with like horrible monsters and, Forgotten Realms. It was all like mismatched stuff that didn't go together. But I've always been really into the art in role-playing games books. Like I can remember just poring over like Todd Lockwood dragons and like third edition stuff that are just so like muscly and like anatomically complex. And that's not really, I mean, that stuff's still amazing, but it's not like what I'm into or what I want to make anymore. But I kind of think that is what pushed me towards going to art school. Like, so making art and role-playing games have always been like a little connected for me. But I hear this story a lot from people, but after high school, I kind of like fell off, didn't play any RPGs for a super long time, and then only got back into it in like 2021 or something. And then immediately was like finding all these podcasts, discovering the indie scene. And I really, I kind of regret that I missed like 10 years of people making awesome stuff, like really DIY stuff, Google Plus. I just like missed all of that. And I've always made like zines and comics and stuff like that. So, I had my long arm stapler already. I was already like into self-publishing stuff, but then, I found itch.io and just started making stuff. And then the same year I met you at PAX, David, I also met Alan at his booth. And a few months later, I think when I went to his booth, he was really busy and I didn't actually get to talk to him or like show him my art at all. But I gave him a business card. And like a few months later, he hit me up. And now Out of the Iron Labyrinth is the third project I've worked on with him. So we just have this like, partnership we've formed, and it's been super fun. And yeah, I'm definitely hoping to, work with more people eventually, but he's been keeping me pretty busy and it's been like working out well. So
Awesome. Yeah. One thing I did appreciate about meeting you at PAX was, if I'm remembering, like you had physical zines, I have one someplace.
Yeah.
And it's great to get a card or to chat to somebody and they show you their stuff on the phone or whatever. But like that's also how I got started pulling back into this world, was going to GaryCon and I had a book that I did and I was just like handing it out to people and talking shop.
Yeah.
And it really helps, like, because it shows that you're motivated, you're creative, you're like, you can do it yourself. You don't need other people, like
there's always this tension between like, making zines or making role-playing hobby stuff as like a DIY kind of subculture, really cool activity, and then the commercial aspect. I think people are always kind of like fighting over that a little and agonizing over it, but I don't know, it's all cool.
Yeah, I mean, just make what you want to make, right? Or like work with people you want to work with, and get your stuff out there, which is something I think you've been doing a good job at, especially if you think about you coming up at that PAX. It wasn't last PAX, it was the one before?
It was 2024. Yeah, I was like an old-timey salesman. I had like my portfolio that I was like stopping by every booth that I thought was cool and like forcing people to look at it. I think the first booth I hit was the Goodman Games ones, and the guys working that were like so nice and like told me, oh, like you got to go talk to these people, and it was super fun. Yeah, I'm gonna go back this year, so
cool.
See some guys there.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your project? And
yeah, sure. So Out of the Iron Labyrinth is a hell escape adventure. It is. So I'm not writing it. Alan's super modest, but I can tell you guys that it's sweet. I've been really enjoying just like reading it, and I'm hoping to like do a play test of it one way or another soon, because it's intended for just one PC. So you can either play it duet, like with a GM and one player, or solo. And it's got like some solo tools included. Alan has made a bunch of solo games at this point. Like some of them are journaling games, and some of them are more sort of like procedural adventures. So he's got some experience doing that stuff, and it's interesting because there's some challenges with like in a normal game, the map is hidden. There's like secrets that the players don't know. But for solo or even like this duet style game, we kind of figure just put the map out there. Like you know where everything is. That's not the problem. It's more like figuring out which NPCs can you talk to, turn against each other. It's like using all these procedures and like random tables.
Let's steer it like just a little bit, just for a little bit longer. I want to talk more about the art in particular, though.
Yeah, sure.
And like your process, your working relationship with this author. Do you get a lot of freedom? Is there like a certain? Do you just get like a rough outline and then you go for it? I mean, the cover is very like your banner image and stuff is very cool. It's like that hell bridge and like the little.
Oh, okay. So I didn't actually do the cover. I should.
Oh, okay.
I broke my collarbone back at the very beginning of the year, right when it was time to make the cover art. And so I enlisted a close friend, Eric Jones. He's a great illustrator, and he doesn't know role-playing games really, but he's into all the same stuff I am. Loves drawing like wizards and stuff. So
okay,
that was my first time getting to like art direct someone, which was really cool. But I'm trying to sort of match all of my art for the interior to the cover, and we both have a cartoony style.
Yours is different. Yeah. Like the stuff that I've seen in that zine, so that's one reason I want to bring up the cover, was because I thought it was you doing something totally different.
Oh yeah.
But now you're taking the direction, like your set art direction of I want a cohesive look, and now you're like having to go in and sort of try something a little different.
Is going to be just through the color palette, like keeping it to a limited color palette that he chose, and now I'm just bouncing off of that with like the purples and blacks and reds and stuff. But I hang out and draw with him all the time. Like we collaborate on stuff, so it's not too much of a stretch to like try to lean into his style a little, but it is different.
Yeah, cool. Well, I'm gonna hop over to Eric.
Hey.
So Eric, you've been at this for a bit, and I mean, I think most of us came to you through your work in music. Particularly like I think I was working in a record store and found like maybe your work on Nebula. I just seen them play with like, I don't know, something. It was like some crazy lineup. It was like Napalm Death and like early Mastodon or something with Nebula. And it was like, I heard them and I went and dug through our bins and found that, and I think Core or something. And
yeah, that was way back. That was some of the first things I did. Late 1990s.
Yeah, it's cool it's kind of like a full circle thing though, with like music and like getting to meet you in person now, and even going back through your catalog, and I'm seeing things where I'm like, I had no, oh shit, that was Eric. Dude had, I had that album, or I had that poster, even like a show posters and stuff like that. Because you went to school you did work in screen printing for a while, and like a bunch of other stuff. So like where does role playing for you, like where does it live? Like, did you play it when you were younger, or is it just one of those things where like sort of the imagery between metal and RPGs has always been pretty tight, and it just sort of bleeds together, and now you're finding yourself working more in the industry, or like how's that work out for you?
Yeah, it's I guess it's a little bit of both, probably more of the latter. But when I was a kid, my father was given a Dungeons and Dragons game when I was about 6 years old. My mother gave him one of the early D&D box sets. I guess it was probably 1979, whatever that was. And so I was pretty fascinated by that at the time. And my dad and I would, I was looking at the box. I didn't understand how to play. But that kind of, I guess that put it on my radar that, what these things were. And I was pretty interested in fantasy art and stuff like that as a kid. And, late 70s, early 80s, all through the 80s, I was, collecting magazines and heavy metal magazine and underground comics and things like that. And fantasy art was just always something that I really, gravitated to more than other genres, I guess. And so I was drawing that kind of stuff all through my youth, and it kind of just led into me doing it for other people at some point when I was probably at school at the School of Visual Arts. I started doing t-shirt images for some bands, like some metal, sludge metal bands and things like that in the early 90s. Just because I liked the music and I could draw stuff that was, appropriate for it or something, I would just kind of like, say, hey, I'll do a t-shirt for you after. I usually knew the band in some way. Well, I didn't cold approach these people. Usually I had some connection, and it just kind of led on from there. And then I got hooked up with CP Records and did a bunch of stuff that like Nebula and some other things that got seen. And it grew organically from that, to being with a band. I mean, doing artwork for a band, it really becomes a vehicle for the art, and it just reaches people that it wouldn't otherwise. And I wasn't, I played RPG stuff a little bit when I was a kid, D&D and Star Frontiers. I remember I liked the sci-fi version. But I didn't play it a lot because honestly, it was so complicated. And, I was really into video games, but the sitting down and trying to wrap my head around Dungeons and Dragons was often too much patience, or required too much patience from me. But I really love the aesthetic of it, and I collected the metal miniatures and stuff like that. So anyway, it was just, doing artwork, and pretty much stayed consistent with doing the kind of artwork I like, which is like fantasy stuff and science fiction and psychedelic art. And the market just kind of changed in my favor, where suddenly that stuff became more and more popular, and it went from the underground to more of a mainstream acceptance. And then I saw that the D&D players used to be kind of, they were kind of stigmatized, and they had to stay in the underground when I was in elementary school. And then suddenly everybody was coming out, like Dungeons and Dragons is acceptable and people are proudly embracing it. And I was happy to see that. And my artwork lended itself to a lot of that stuff. And so people started approaching me to do things here and there. I haven't done a lot of gaming stuff though. I've done a little bit. I did a lot of work on one project for the game Torchbearer on Burning Wheel. I did a lot. I did like 3 or 4 manual covers for them and a bunch of interior illustrations. And that was about maybe 5 years ago or so.
Yeah, that's that second edition or whatever. I remember it was up on Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. But I haven't done a lot of other stuff. Although I'm always open to it. And usually if somebody asks me to, I try to do it because I just enjoy it. It's like the kind of stuff that I like to draw anyway. So I'm been more open to, if companies ask me to do it, I usually try to. But there hasn't been a lot of that. Most of my work is in, I've done a lot of album covers over the years, but I also do freelance illustration for, ad agencies and more mainstream stuff as well. Book covers, magazine illustration, all sorts of things. Because I grew up as a freelance illustrator, making a living, even though I worked in the underground music stuff a lot too. But at this point, I just, like I said, fortunately, I'm able to do a lot of my own creative work for other people because it's become more desirable, that type of work.
Cool. Let's talk a little bit about your project on OSE month with that Max and Jonica are writing, and you're working with Skinner. It's a pretty interesting concept that sort of breaks what we normally think of nowadays as like a old school essentials or like a old school OSR D&D book where it's TSR back in the day did these like sort of versus books, and so you get, and I think there's another company as well. It might have been Fighting Fantasy or or yeah, right, Fighting Fantasy, British UK company did a few of those as well, maybe. But so you're doing half of that book, and you're doing painting and pen and ink. So I don't know if I've seen very much, if any, of your pen and ink work coming up to this point. Normally I see you as a painter. So like, can you talk to us a little bit about like how you like which do you prefer? Do you like to spend a lot of time on a painting? Do you like to maybe not quickness, but do you like the change of pace, like moving into pen and ink work for this particular project, and like your process, maybe your materials too, because you're doing it all, you're traditional, right? So like nothing's digital inked on there. Yeah, I don't know. Talk to us a little bit about that stuff.
Yeah, I do both equally. I think I do just as much pen and ink work as I do color illustration. Most of the stuff that gets published of mine, I guess, is color, because you know, it ends up being, you know, something that is more elaborate than just a simple pen and ink drawing. And I work with watercolor and gouache and acrylic paints and colored pencils primarily, you know, water-based mediums like that. And I combine them all usually. But for black and white, I use brush pens mostly, and I used to use Crow pens a lot, but I just find them a little bit unnecessarily slow. Just I like them, you know, and they're great for if you want to go, you know, to take a lot of time with something. But I tend to work kind of fast. I like the kind of like faster brush stroke approach. I grew up being inspired by illustrators like Bernie Wrights and a lot of other underground, you know, not just black and white, but I really like the black and white comic work of people like him, and Frank Frazetta's black and white work is really phenomenal too, of course. So you know, that's sort of probably the inspiration for a lot of what I see myself doing these days. But I love working in black and white. It's I see it as really almost a separate, you know, not a separate art form, but it's a different way of seeing it, because, you know, you have to make up and compose something with these negative and positive spaces and the variations in between. And there's so many degrees in which you can do that. And I really enjoy, you know, trying to build as much with these degrees of shading. And I don't know, it's very natural to me too. I don't really overthink it. I just kind of go in and I do it. But yeah, it's, you know, it's all on paper, mostly brush pens and some, you know, some micron fine point pens, but I prefer to be more fluid with it and kind of like work quickly. And I also use, you know, India ink and a brush when I'm doing large black areas.
Yeah,
So,
the energy of your pen and ink work, and maybe that's where the word like kind of speed came to my mind when I was asking you that question initially. The energy of your black and white work is, in my opinion, like it feels different than your paintings, and you can almost see a little bit of that like old Last Gasp, like slow death like books and stuff like that.
yeah, Greg Irons actually is one of my favorites, and he was, you know, one of the artists at Slow Death and Last Gasp, and he actually did Dungeons and Dragons stuff too.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he did. I
Have to dive in.
It's in I think it's in the TSR or the D&D TSR art book, you know, the big one that came out. There's
I've got that.
there's a page of his in there that he did. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I love all that old, like that's like Bay Area underground comics stuff, like 60s, 70s, a lot of Corbin, a lot of it's good stuff for sure. But yeah, I can see a bit of that in your pen and ink work that is not as evident in your paintings, I feel. But that's cool. That's good to know.
Yeah.
I'm going to kick it over to Aaron Kreader next. Unless anyone else has questions for either Jamie or Eric. And if anybody else wants to jump in, feel free to raise your hand and ask the question. Charles, real quick before Aaron gets started.
I was just going to say, like, I mean, this could be said for every one of you, but it's also very cool to like finally put a face to the artwork for you, Eric. So like, yeah, cool. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. Likewise.
I'll try.
All right, we're all quite handsome. So the next handsome guy, Aaron.
Hey, so I guess the first question is, getting started. So I'm kind of moving in the opposite direction of all art in the industry. It's becoming more digital, more. So I started digital, and I was working with SSI TSR on the gold box editions, making art with a game company. Back when you had to click on the mouse to get all the little pixels to show up. It was like you were a bricklayer. You would stack little blocks and make art. But in the end, at night, I would just run everybody through games and first edition D&D and stuff like that. It's like I had a lot of passion for running those games. And eventually I just said, I can't do digital art anymore. I just couldn't do it. So I moved, I opened up Studio 9. And so recently we did Castle White Rock and Illustrated Journey. And, as Studio 9, we've done a lot of contract work for Goodman Games. And we're a third-party publisher for them as well. But I've worked with a lot of other companies making illustrations, mostly black and white art, a lot of cartography, but then some color covers and stuff too, because I like to keep it varied. I get bored with one thing or another. So, but yeah, so I just started doing more and more illustrations on the board and just getting away from the computer. And I still do some contract work with that, but for the most part, I really, really like ink heavy stuff. So, and then occasionally acrylics, but yeah, so I guess the next stage is I'll just start making stuff with stone. I'll just start like chipping into stone. I guess that's the evolution of where I'm going with all this. As things go in the world into AI, I'm just going into stoneworking or something.
Yeah, I like it.
But yeah, so the other question, I can't remember the other question.
Your OSE month project. Let's
yeah, so I worked on some OSE work on the Grimoire, working with Gavin as the art director, and that was kind of cool because that was like my debut into that. I had done a lot of work with Goodman Games and Dungeon Crawl Classics, their 5th edition line, as well as X Crawl Classics and all the different products that they're doing. So this was kind of like fun to work with OSE, and I always loved that line of things. I run games in this and stuff. And there's a third-party publisher. I'm making stuff in that line. So we just came out with 101 dungeon encounters that's compatible with OSE. And so, yeah, it's really enjoyed working on the kind of tone that the Demonic Grimoire had, because just had like an edge that is really fun to put on the art. So.
Yeah, it's a gnarly book.
Yeah, I got to see some of the layouts and some of the work other artists did, and the whole tone of it is just, I can't wait to get a copy. It's just gonna be fantastic.
Yeah, like working with Gavin to put that thing together has been a lot of fun. And yeah, I mean, the nice thing about Gavin, I can be very hands off with Gavin. Like I just let him. He can do it, right? So he just calls me in when I need to he needs an extra eye on something. So when I first saw that, though, I was like, man, every piece in this book is just absolutely killer. So I think people are going to be very excited. Your work in particular is very strong. And it's also interesting to go back and like look through your work. You do both kind of gnarly stuff, but also like very commercial, like fun children's book, like cutesy stuff. So it's like a nice palate cleanser to jump back and forth between those two things. You know,
I mean,
fun to draw fun to draw cute stuff too, but you know, I find it's better to not live in one world too long. So it seems like you're kind of the same way there. Can you talk a little bit about balancing those two sort of genres and styles, and like, you know, like how does that work for you? Do you get like locked in one gear and then you got to completely pull yourself out of it for you know, something that's a little more kid friendly?
Yeah, it's really a great question, because I think right away of Dr. Zeus, Theater Gazelle, and when I went to one of his shows, they actually curated the museum really well, or the space, because they had a little dark room where you had to go through curtains, and then they painted the walls black, and they had his private work, and it was awesome because it was just all this shadow side stuff. And my dad was a counselor, and so, you know, I kind of grew up really embracing this idea of, you know, embracing your shadow side, whatever that looks like for you, you know. So I definitely love making children's productions. My wife, which helps run Studio 9, our company, she does that end of things. She's a children's producer and produces shows and books and stuff for children. And I really love supporting that work and supporting her. And of course, I love that work too. And I do a lot of stuff for like Brilliant Star Magazine and Kids Magazine, stuff like that. But there's always been this side of me that has played D&D and loves D&D. So like when it comes to like making these kind of gruesome creatures and stuff, I'm all for it. It is like literally a beat. Like I'll get one assignment and then I just go have lunch and I come back. I can just switch gears and go into the other mode. So it's not like I can switch gears like a snap, but like if I just sit back, take a beat, a breath, look outside for a bit, I can go into the other mode. So yeah.
After a sandwich, you're good to go. You just like
just one
get the little spike of blood sugar, and then you go right into demon mode. I love it.
Yeah.
Those Seuss night paintings are amazing too. That's what you're referring to.
Oh
the
yeah.
night series or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are very cool, and I recommend anybody like go if you haven't seen those Seuss night paintings. I think that they were only allowed to be shown after his death too. It was like a weird thing. So they're very neat, very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Let's hop over to Frank.
Yeah.
Hey, how's it going, buddy?
All right.
You've
been in the room right now.
Yeah. So like if I don't know, like a lot of people who know OSC know you. So let's get into it.
Nice.
You're definitely, I mentioned before we hopped on the recording, like you're a bit of a BX head. Like,
I love this rule system to the bottom of my being. I think it's just so knowable, which is what makes it so great. My introduction to D&D in general was back in the maybe mid to late 80s. My older cousin, you may actually know him. If you travel in geek circles, he's John Siracusa from Reconcilable Differences or Hypercritical podcast. Anyway. He was my older cousin, and he had his walls covered with art that he reproduced from Larry Elmore, Clyde Caldwell, stuff like that. So seeing that growing up made me want to draw more. And then I actually have a photo of the moment at my grandparents' house where he's sitting in a lawn chair with his D&D binder open, and he explained everything to me about the characters, the stats, and that was it. Like I didn't know anything about the game, but I ran around drawing up stats for my favorite cartoon characters for months, and years even, until I bumped into learning what I could, playing bits and pieces of 2E, kind of, maybe making stuff up. And then I met this guy, DJ, who lived down the block from me when I was a teenager, and he introduced me to first edition. And that's where I really kind of dug in for the next 10, 20 years. And then it wasn't until doing work for OSE that I started to get into the BX system and the beauty of it. I just wanted to see my ink in print, That was just an ego move. It was like, oh, look, I'm published now. Cool. But yeah, getting into that was my door, and then I realized how beautiful the system is, and I just I gorged on it. And so I'm pretty active helping people to resolve their questions against the raw when I can. That was basically the backdrop.
Yeah, and then we pulled you in for Demonic Grimoire.
Yep. For the demonic grimoire, I've only got a couple of pieces in there. There's like 3. I did one at the beginning, one at the end, and the succubus, I think. But yeah, before that, of course, I did lots of other stuff. Like the biggest stuff I've done for OSE were the
Those
these
covers.
guys, the anthologies, and then just one more we squeaked in for the next anthology, which was the Horse Lord, and those were really fun. I don't get to do a lot of color work. I nitpick on it probably even harder than Jamie does. I go directly to vector usually. So when you're drawing vector, of course, it's just infinite zooming. It's not just zooming to a high resolution pixel dimension. It's forever, and you can just, of course, obsess about those little details. I realized that was kind of a trap though, so I went back to sketching recently, and it kind of like opened me up. And having those search lines and not having stuff go directly to permanent ink, even though I can erase it, still kind of trapped me a lot. So yeah, getting back to like pencil sketching and stuff really sort of started changing me lately. I realized that I was doing a lot of like hiding details and chaos. Like when you don't really know what a shape is supposed to look like, you just kind of scrumble around in there for a while, and you're like, yeah, it totally looks like there could be a hand in there somewhere.
A cloak over it.
That's what I meant to do. I want my art to look, loose and alive. And I just realized I was kind of being, lazy and not disciplined. So because I don't know, I aped, like I said, I was aping Matt Ray's style for a couple of years. I saw his stuff in the OSE books and the Back to Basics covers, and that's what actually made me pick up my pen again. I saw that stuff and I said, that man's art makes me want to play games, drop what I'm doing, and draw art while we play. And I started doing that. And yeah, and then I started to realize I was just being too lazy about it, especially after I started seeing. Does he pronounce his name Kenan or Keenan? Kenan James?
Oh, I'm not. I always pronounced it Keenan, but it might be Kenan. I love his work. His work in this book is
I wish
awesome.
you were on this call so badly right now because, man, I am so obsessed with his work right now. Just the finality, the like, if you look at his line work, there's nothing wasted in there. It's all like, it's finished. It's really beautifully finished. I started looking back at my stuff and I started revising art for Gavin for the next release of OSE. I can't believe I gave him this piece of garbage. What am I thinking? So I went a little bit nuts redrawing a bunch of art, and it kind of helped me level up. So a lot of love for that guy's art right now.
I like that you're giving other folks their flowers, and like calling out the influences, but also like your work does stand on its it's up, in my opinion, it's high up there. Those anthology covers are awesome. Even though you said you only have the few pieces in on Demonic Grimoire, they're great pieces. It's great to see them in print. Can you talk a little bit about some of the tools that you use? I see like a lot of Dave Trampier in your work too. Like, so yeah, like let's talk about your process just a little bit. And
I give credit where credit is due, because I think we're all art thieves to a certain extent, and I'm probably worse than some people. When I didn't know how to solve a problem in a drawing, I would do exactly that. I go look at how Matt solved it, look at how Kenan solved it, figure out how another artist got around this problem or this lighting or this weird position I'm trying to do, and then just kind of do my own version of it. So my process is purely digital. I realized that transitioning from paper to digital was awkward for me. Time is such a crunch for me. I'd love to have all that time to process and iterate and experiment and try things. I struggle with composition on such a big level. There's nothing worse for me than an empty sheet of paper. You give me somebody else's piece of art that's badly done, and I will go to town and fix it. And I got all these cool things to do, and idea. You should have made this character come forward and this guy go back, and use more contrast. I can come up with 100 ways to help somebody else make their art better, and then stare at a blank piece of paper like an idiot, drooling on it. So my process starts with being frustrated, and then usually ends with some form of stealing from another artist. So there it is.
That works. And I will say it's a lot easier to go from, I forget, I was listening to something, it might have been a podcast or something, where someone said it was easier to go from 1 to 1,000 than it is from 0 to 1.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, so getting that initial bit started, like going from 0 to 1 is the worst. I mean, for me, it's like from 0 to 1 sucks, and then from 1 to 5 is terrible, and then it's like bad the whole way until I get to a finished thing, and then I've got about 5 days of liking it before I hate it again.
Yes.
But
Creator's curse runs strong in this family. It's
yeah. So do you ink vector? Like, do you use do you work in Illustrator mostly, or do you
Fresco, because I just it had better capabilities for me for drawing and stuff. So
Yeah,
it was more streamlined. So yeah, I work with Fresco for that.
Yeah. So Adobe Fresco, I am not the biggest fan, but they do have awesome vector brushes.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that, like, if people are listening or are thinking about options for digital inking, like, it's a pretty good program. But the vector brushes I find to be like really nice in there. Like, they've got a lot of versatility and they're nice and clean, and you can pull it into Photoshop, and it it pulls it in as a smart object, right? But you can't work in Photoshop. You can't like move back and forth.
No.
That's my biggest complaint with it, because
you could convert to pixels if you weren't dealing with vectors, and then throw pixels back in and do pixels. But then it's not vector anymore.
But like, it won't even if you don't do anything with that SVG or whatever it is, like, it doesn't. It, even when you port it back, it like mushes it all into one layer or something, if I remember correctly. But it's worth checking out. It's free. At least as far as Adobe stuff goes. If you've got an iPad or something, it's
I mean, I pay mine because I need the storage, because I have so much art sitting in the cloud there that I need. But yeah, I think the thing that even allowed the door to open for me to walk in to do illustration in OSE is the type of art, the style of the art that is inherent is not. It allows for people like me, who are pretty much amateurs, outsiders, people who aren't practiced artists, to still create a successful illustration, because that's the beauty of the genre. It doesn't over imagine details for the viewer. You know what I mean? That's old school art, I think, is what really defines it. It's just that. When you get to second edition stuff, and you see those really trained artists doing like beautiful photographic drawings of characters from books, it kind of ends the conversation, right? Like, well, that's what Tanis looks like, I guess. I can right down to his eyelashes. I can tell you exactly that's done. But for when you look back at the old basic books, that the art is so much more outsider, and it's so much more open for your brain, for the viewer to add to that process by, imagining their own details. So the viewer becomes a part of it, and that openness sort of allows more artists to get in and do stuff and call themselves artists, I think, which is really beautiful. So
awesome. Yeah, for sure. I can see that. All right, let's bump it over to Charles Ferguson Avery. Thank you for being so patient, my man. It's good to see you again. I think I missed you. You weren't at were you at last year's PAX, or maybe I was just too tight to the booth? I was also sick as hell.
Yeah,
So,
I was at the last one, but I had to do a bunch of running around. I did get to bump into Gavin, which is why I am doing this that I am now. Normally, I stick to only doing system neutral stuff when I do game design stuff, but Gavin mentioned it. It would be pretty cool to make something as part of like a greater old school essentials thing, and I'm very happy with what I was able to make.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, you've been making great stuff for quite a bit. So let's get the first questions out of the way. Like, you getting into the game, and then how did that turn into you making art for games?
Well, starting with the game, I played it when I was a kid. My dad got me the box set when I was, I think, like 10 or something like that. It was, I believe, 3rd edition. And I played it a lot. I enjoyed it a lot. Eventually, kind of like other things took place. Like, I was trying to get good grades in school. Eventually, I decided I was going to go to art school. And it was kind of something that was like always there, but it was never something that I planned to be like, to do something professionally with. I mean, as I think it was, one of you mentioned like Tom Lockwood when it came to illustrations. That might have been Jamie. Jamie's not here right now. It just seemed unattainable, especially like seeing like all these like professional illustrations. And I decided I would try to get into comics. I would do like freelance cartoons, and I do still do that to this day. It wasn't until I fell into the OSR that I started making my own stuff. I started getting work like in the role-playing game space. I started making my own, doing my own writing, doing my own layouts, and I'm very fortunate to be able to make a lot of what I do purely because I want to make it. That being said, a majority of my artwork is still freelance, and I'm, that is just part of the work that I do.
Right on. Can you talk a little bit about your OSC month project?
Yes. So it's called Mildew and Silver. It is I could go into like kind of what it's about, but like talking about it from the art perspective, somebody at one of the gaming groups I hang out with got their hands on an old Games Workshop Realm of Chaos book with some of like my favorite illustrations in it, and the treatment on every page from like layout to design is something to behold, and something that like I don't mean to be this kind of person, but it does feel like something was lost. And every once in a while, like people come back to it when it comes to layout and such.
This guy?
But yep, there it is.
Yeah, it's Realm of Chaos, Slaves to Darkness is like that's pretty
gold
peak.
standard. I mean, one of the gold standards, one of the many peaks gold standards. But I use that as sort of a reference for what I wanted the interior to look like. And then as far as the actual adventure itself, I wanted to show off my chops as both an illustrator, both a layout artist, and a writer / designer, because those two are sort of interchangeable. And that's in part because once my last big book is done, I'm going to be probably switching over to full freelance for a time being. There's some other work that I plan on taking up, but this I want to use as my portfolio moving forward. That way I can, if I want to shop myself, if I want to show off what I can do, it's here's my art, here's my writing, here's my layout, and it is all presented cohesively to you, Mr. Art Director or Mrs. Art Director, or honestly, like just somebody I'd like to work with.
Sure. I mean, that's powerful if you're like, especially when, if anybody here has seen the scope of Charles's work, like that makes very beautiful books, and they're big and impressive. I don't have Cess and Citadel, but I've got, what was the first one? The Wilderness one?
Into the Weird and Wild, then Into the Citadel, recently Ave Nox, and now
Yes.
Into the Salt and Surf. Like,
Yeah, Ave Nox is very cool too, and also Vermhack is also quite good.
thank you. I'm trying.
What was that?
I'm trying.
Well, I mean, it's to show up with a physical object that you're like, here's something I did. Here, it's very cool. It's very powerful, and it's also a big challenge, and it's something that's like, it's a dedication to take on. I've never done anything that big, so like, it's definitely impressive for sure. Can you talk a little bit about maybe some of your process and materials? I've seen you do kind of a bunch of stuff. So like, where are you at now? Like, what do you like working in? I've seen your pencil work. I've seen watercolor. I've seen like mix of pen and ink with washes, like ink washes.
And I do falter because by not sticking to just one medium, I haven't had the chance to learn something. Like, I can't say I'll probably ever be a master of like one specific medium, but that's because I feel like each medium can kind of do its own thing. And so when I'm working, it's less about, well, I need to do an oil painting, or I need to do an acrylic painting or a pencil drawing, and more, this piece needs to look like this. And in order to achieve that, I'm going to need textured paper. I'm going to need a base of watercolors, and then to, pull out the colors or pull out this texture or this form, I'm going to need acrylics. Recently, though, especially after Ave Nox, I really got back into using pencils and dry medium. I like really loving the texture. And this is also because like I've tried working digitally. I cannot do it. There is just, I feel like there are too many options, and it's like a little difficult to get what I want. I know there's with a lot of the stuff that Procreate has, you can get a lot of those textures that are natural, but I've already spent this time like learning how to do it traditionally, and so aside from a few changes here and there with like Clip Studio of like adjusting colors, getting the saturation right, I just really like getting my hands dirty when it comes to art.
Yeah, I mean, definitely something to be said about that, and definitely, I don't know, like it shows versatility, and also like, I mean, you mentioned you don't think you're kind of a jack of all trades, right? Master of none at this point, but
Yeah.
Even if you're doing like, if you're drawing, if you're making something, like you're gonna get better. You're gonna get better, a little bit better at everything, I think. Like, so even if you don't touch a painting for like 5 years, if you're still working, like getting your things out of your head or translating something that you're seeing through your head onto paper or surface or whatever, sculpting, anything, like that still translates over into a broader like ability set of you know, your illustration work or your pen and ink.
I have the philosophy, it's a little mantra, I am one drawing better by every drawing that I do.
Yeah, that's also good, a good way to think about it for sure.
Yes.
Does anybody else have any kind of like little, Jacob, you have a question?
Yeah, I was curious about you have final art that ends in published in pencil, and I want to know what your process is for like finalizing that pencil work. Like, do you have to clean it up a lot in order to scan it and then make it, I guess, the contrast? Like, how do you adjust that to make it more readable? Because it looks great. I'm looking at the art now, and it looks good.
Oh, you might have frozen up.
Oh, is that me or is him?
No, I think it's Charles. I think he froze up. Oh wait, are you there, Charles? Check. All right. Well, he'll be back at some point, hopefully. Does anybody else have any questions for each other, or we'll see if he hops back in. Just had a reboot, or anything else. Like Charles just brought up, kind of like a mindset when you're working, so you don't like just keep you in track, or to help you not get overwhelmed, or anything like that. Like a little mantra, or a way you practice. Like I know for me, I try my best not to do the same thing twice or like too many times. Like if I catch myself doing the same pose over and over again, I'm like, all right, can't do that one anymore. Got to move over to something else. Charles, can you hear us now that you're back? All right. Yeah. Jacob had his question.
Sorry about that. The internet just dropped.
Real quick,
I didn't catch any of that question. I am so sorry.
Oh, okay,
it literally you started talking and it just started like degrading as you started speaking.
I hope it doesn't do it again. So anyway, so the question was, you have final art that you in your line work in pencil, which I think is awesome. But how do you control like in post? I guess what's your process for line work? Are you doing like light boxing for final art, and then scanning it and then cleaning it up in post, or are you doing it mostly like on paper? I'm curious.
Recently, I have been I've just been going in with pencil directly on the piece of paper, going in light, doing the inks on top of it, and erasing as I go. It's like I do some light boxing, and it does make it look cleaner. And if I were to present in a gallery setting, I would definitely light box the artwork instead of doing that. But since I have like some kind of like post-processing options for like getting rid of some of the smudges, and some days I need to do like 4 illustrations a day. So it is a matter of just like getting them done. This happens to be the quickest. And once again, if I am like presenting for like a local show or something like that, I do make it a point of like, all right, this needs to be clean. So piece of paper under the light box, piece of paper top of the light box, and then the Bristol on top of that.
You're muted, Jacob. Sorry.
Yeah, I've seen other artists that like do comics and like their final line work is in pencil. I'm like, that is awesome. That would be such a time saver if I didn't have to mess with ink. That'd be
That, or if you have access to a printer, this is what one of my old professors who worked for Marvel and DC did. Print out the blue line on the Bristol, and then just do directly on that, and you can just drop that into pretty much any program and drop the blue out.
Yeah, printing non-photo blue and then inking on top of the boards is like, that's a way. And I don't know, you tend not to, like, if you light box too much, you can get a little tight, I feel sometimes. Does anyone else have that problem? Where, yeah, you're drawing, you lose the energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
I've heard the statement, you want to connect the distance between your sketch to the final piece, you want that in as few steps as possible to keep it from being stiff.
Yeah, for sure. And that's good advice, like all around to anybody watching this.
I think sometimes doing iterations though, like you actually loosen up. Like if I'm tracing something, then it's like I can just be quick and like get some of the energy back sometimes.
Yeah, you do cartooning, so that is something I am still trying to catch up with. Is that like, sorry, I know we're kind of going off the rails of this a little bit, but like, it's one of the reasons I love your work and cartooning as a whole is it is almost built on muscle memory, and those like multiple iterations of just like getting that one line right or getting that one expression of the brush right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more with you, Charles. I think where like the more I go, the stiffer my work tends to get. But but there's there's something to be said for like maybe I need to try to use that more as like a loose guide and not something like force myself to be loose at that transition point if I'm working traditionally. And that
that happens to me too. Like the first sketch you do that was not supposed to be like, it's always the best drawing, and it was just your little thumbnail, and you can never get that like perfect thumbnail back. But,
yeah.
We used to use the Xerox machine when I worked at MTV Animation. We would sometimes, because we couldn't ever get the sketch to look as, a following sketch to look as good as the first one, we would use the Xerox machine to just blow up the sketch to a big size and use the thumbnail sketch, because oftentimes that was the best one because it captured something that we just couldn't replicate larger. So that was what, I don't know who told us to do that, but one of our art directors there was like, just try doing this, and we would do that, and you could get it to any size you wanted, and then you've got that, and you can trace it. But that speaks to the idea that the first sketch has often got the most life in it, but that's not always true too, I think.
Yeah, there's always exceptions to the rules, but I mean, for sure, when you're figuring it out and you're drawing from your shoulder more, and everything's like, you're getting the gestural stuff in before you start to really hone in. That energy is hard to replicate in a final sometimes. So these are all great little tidbits and tips. We're kind of hit just about that hour mark. I'm free to, like, if you guys want to keep this conversation going, that's fine. If you want to wrap it up with any final thoughts or where people can find you, we could do that too. Does anyone else have any questions for like any of us here? Like anything else?
I'm just happy to be sitting in the same room. Genuinely, this is like
I would love for these conversations to continue sort of infinitely. Like I've been desiring like an artist community where, you know, like who was it? It was who was Picasso working with back when he was discovering Cubism back in the day? Like they just go out and sit in the cafe and talk about art and what they were doing and the weird stuff they were experimenting with, and they made each other better artists. I'm hungry for that. So if you guys are around, I don't know what platform is the best for you, but we should probably, if you're interested in that, we should maybe get
That's why I like
space
doing these collaborative things.
Yeah.
You know, these events, like when Gavin put like the word out, it's like, oh yeah, once I get into doing this with other people, then the ideas will start flowing. You know, in a vacuum, it's hard, but like when you have other people that are like in the same boat and you're looking at their stuff, you're like, man, okay, I could do that better. That looks awesome. I want to try and do something cool too.
I think that this is a conversation that could lead quickly into something that's like the loss of third spaces and getting into the isolation of the digital age and all that stuff. So yeah, I don't know, maybe Frank, maybe be the change you want to see in the world. Fire up a Discord and send us all invites or something, and we can
all right, we have to learn Discord. Here we go.
It's pretty simple.
Yeah, Goodman Games does their art director does a monthly drink and draw where all the staff and contract artists come together once a month on a Friday, and it's literally, a lot of them just put a camera on what they're working on. Some put it on them while they're working, and then they shift the camera, just sharing what you're working on, talking about stuff, sometimes just going over even fiduciary stuff having to do with the project. But, it gives you that sense of community, and everybody kind of starts to learn about each other and about the process they're working on and what.
Yeah, I like Matt. He's a cool dude. That's a good idea for sure.
I've missed the last like 3 of those in hindsight, and I really hope that Matt doesn't think it's because I don't want to be there. It's just something else has always popped up. They're a delight. Also, and I think you'll. Whenever Doug Kovac comes on, it's a great time.
Yeah, Doug's one of my favorite parts of GaryCon for sure. Like sitting with Doug and having him go into his Dougisms and just being Doug. Like his attitude is just he's a hilarious dude.
I got another, not to take up too much time, but I have another Dougism of this little mantra, like another little mantra that, man, he put that in my head, and it's still there. He says, as an artist, he came up to me at a convention. He said, like, as an artist, you can either be a Millhouse or you can be a Manson. And it's kind of a spectrum of where you fall on that. And, of course, like, what on earth do you mean by that, Doug? And he's like, well, a Millhouse, you follow all the rules, you do what you're told, everything's on time, squeaky clean. And then a Manson, well, you're a god. Like, you get to do what you want, and or something to that effect. And I still, whenever I'm working on something, I do that little like bar pops up in my head of like, all right, while I'm working on this, where am I going to fall on that spectrum?
Map that value system to the alignment chart for a second.
Manson versus Millhouse.
I remember Doug going off on one of those Dougisms, and it just got so wild. And I just stopped and said, Doug, what did your parents do to you? And he goes, the worst thing you could possibly do to a kid. They treated me great. They were awesome. They were the best, most ideal parents in the world, and absolutely did not prepare me for this world. It was just like right away he went into that.
Yeah, he very rarely misses a beat too when in these conversations. Like he doesn't ever think about it, just comes out. So yeah, Doug Kovac's great guy. Missed him last year at GaryCon. Hopefully I'll catch him this year. Let's start wrapping this thing up. If y'all want to, we'll start with Jacob. You want to fire off like where people can find you and what you got other than RC Month?
Yeah, I've got my website where you can get stuff that I sell at gelatinouskubism.com. www.bigcartel.com. I'm sure everyone else is feeling the same way. Social media really sucks. I really don't like it. So I'm kind of on the outs with Instagram, and I might be deleting it. So I don't really have a portfolio backup plan, but at least I'm here for OSE month.
Well, get with Jacob on Instagram while you can, and then when he's ready to hop off, he'll let everybody know where to find him. Gelatinous Cube is definitely a good spot to start, other than Instagram, though. Jamie.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Jacob there, but I'm not going to delete Instagram. So at Jamie Douglas X, Zines from Below on Blue Sky, my just regular illustration portfolio site where I do non-RPG related stuff is jamie-douglas.com. Yeah, that's it.
All right, Eric.
My website, which is ericroper.com, has a lot of stuff on it. It's not always updated in terms of work, but it's somewhat updated, and you can reach me through there. There's also a store thing, and I'm also on Instagram, which is at Eric Roper. Yeah,
All right.
Those are the two I got.
Aaron.
So yeah, I'm on Patreon, so you can find Aaron Kreader there. Most of my art sales are either at conventions, or I do always for the products we put out. When I do a pack of art, I have an art level. So like, for example, the Castle White Rock Illustrated Journey, most of the art for that got sold as a level. So, follow me on BackerKit if you want to get some of that original stuff from those projects.
All right, Frank.
Yeah, you can find me at youseethis.blog and on Patreon. You see this, like a dungeon master says, you walk into the room and you see this. Yeah, I've got over 800 free VTT tokens up there for personal use, and yeah, the Patreon is cheap. It's $1 or free.
All right, give that guy. I'd buy that for $1. Right, Charles.
So I'm also going to be probably hopping off of Instagram in the next year or so. I just want to I'm going to hang on to it to announce the last book, and then that's it. In the meantime, I have the main website that I use, which is feralindystudio.com. That's the publishing outfit that we run. And other than that, catch me at a convention or here in Pennsylvania.
Cool. Well, I'm David, and you can find me at David Hoskins at just about everything that RPG people are on. I don't know. And thanks so much for hopping on here and taking the time, everybody. It's great to sit and chat and catch up with some of you that I've met before and meet all of you that I haven't. We'll be in touch. And good luck with the rest of the OSC month campaigns. This is wrapping up. By the time this airs, I think there'll probably be about a week left when we put this on YouTube or wherever we're putting it. That's someone else's job, not mine. But there should be about a month left, or a week left on OSC month. So we'll get those links out there. People should go back as many as you can. If you back, I think, more than 6 of the projects, and that includes Demonic Grimoire plus 6, you get a free pack of monster cards that are exclusive for y'all's projects. So if you want like quick monster reference cards for creatures that you all have, all these artists have come up with, then go on there and back some projects. There's also combined shipping, which is pretty excellent, that we're working on with Exalted Funeral here. So if you do decide to back a handful of these, which you should, you can get a lot of them combined, so you don't have to pay an arm and a leg to get it all over to you. So thanks again, and I'm going to stop the recording now. Bye-bye.
Thank you.